Have you ever wondered how trauma impacts us as individuals and affects our society as a whole? Today, we're exploring the complex world of trauma, a topic that touches everyone directly or indirectly. It's an essential conversation as understanding and addressing trauma is key to fostering healthier individuals, communities, and societies, from its roots to its far reaching implications. Trauma is a multifaceted concept that requires our attention. To comprehend trauma, we must first delve into its origins and manifestations, trauma as we understand it. Today finds its roots in the experiences of Vietnam veterans. The word trauma itself comes from the Greek word for wound, but in our modern understanding, it extends beyond physical injuries to encompass emotional and psychological wounds as well. The after effects of combat witnessed by returning soldiers sparked a shift in understanding. Medical professionals began to notice patterns of behavior that seemed to stem from traumatic experiences. These behaviors often oscillated between two extremes: passive withdrawal and explosive reactions. On one hand, individuals might appear detached, unresponsive, or frozen in the face of triggers that remind them of their trauma. On the other hand, they might respond with sudden anger or panic or intense emotional outbursts. These patterns, once recognized, became the basis for understanding how trauma manifests itself in individuals. Recognizing these manifestations, medical professionals developed the concept of post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. PTSD is a mental health condition triggered by a terrifying event. It's a term that emerged from the concept of physioneurosis, a condition that was initially observed in soldiers returning from war zones. However, the scope of PTSD extends far beyond the battlefield. It's a complex disorder that can affect anyone who has experienced a traumatic event, causing them to relive the incident through vivid images, intense emotions, or physical sensations. Imagine walking down a quiet street when suddenly a car backfires. To most, it's a minor annoyance, but to someone with PTSD, it could trigger a flashback to a traumatic event, making them feel as if they're right back in that moment of fear and chaos. This is the reality of PTSD, a relentless echo of trauma that can turn even the most mundane moments into a living nightmare. Contrary to what some may believe, trauma is not an isolated phenomenon. Trauma is more widespread than many realize. It's not distant or rare, but rather a common part of our human experience. An alarming statistic reveals that 1 in 5 women in the United States has a history of sexual molestation. Additionally, the impact of trauma on inner city kids is staggering, as they often encounter violence, neglect, and instability. But what makes an event traumatic is when our bodies perceive danger. Our survival instincts kick in, triggering a fight, flight, or collapse response. This is a primitive automatic reaction aimed at ensuring our safety. However, the lingering effects of this response can be debilitating, often manifesting as post-traumatic stress disorder or other forms of distress. The nature of trauma is complex, intertwined with our physiological responses and personal experiences. It's not just about the traumatic events themselves, but also about how our bodies reacted. Addressing trauma, therefore, is not as straightforward as it may seem. The main challenge in treating trauma is helping individuals feel safe in their bodies. Traditional mental health approaches often fall short, as they tend to dismiss the influence of life circumstances on an individual's mental state. Such approaches may overlook the complex interplay between an individual's environment experiences and their trauma. Instead, it's crucial to build supportive relationships, spaces where people can openly discuss their experiences, guilt, and feelings without fear of judgment or key. This helps individuals understand their reactions, fostering self-compassion and aiding recovery. The impact of trauma isn't confined to individuals alone. It ripples through society, affecting families, communities, and generations. This calls for necessary actions to support those raised under adverse conditions, ensuring they have the resources and understanding needed to navigate their experiences. Understanding trauma requires a nuanced and empathetic approach. It's not just about treating symptoms, but recognizing the societal implications and working towards a more supportive environment. In this brief exploration, we've touched upon the multifaceted concept of trauma, from its origins rooted in the experiences of Vietnam veterans to the widespread prevalence in our society today. We've delved into the nature of trauma, understanding PTSD and the challenges faced in treating it. The importance of relationships, self-compassion, and a nuanced approach to treatment have been underscored. By broadening our understanding of trauma, we can contribute to a more empathetic and supportive society.